Coming to you from sunny South Carolina, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show with your host, Jim Lee. From the upstate to the low country, from the coast to Columbia, we'll cover what's right and uncover what's wrong in the Palmetto State. If we see it, we say it. We call it like it is in South Carolina. And now, it's the Palmetto Conservative Show. Let's jam.
And welcome into the Palmetto Conservative Show here on the Conservative Broadcast Media Network. I'm your host, Jim Lee, part political junkie, part technology geek, part commentator, and sometimes snarky agitator for the application of common sense and the pursuit of critical thinking in the marketplace of ideas, particularly as it relates to the Palmetto State. I don't profess to have all the answers, folks, just an awful lot of relevant questions. Welcome into this week's episode of the Palmetto Conservative Show, our last show before Christmas this year. And wish that I could tell you that we were here with Santa's sack full of goodies. Well, we are here with a sack full of goodies, but I'm afraid that most of them are not the kind of things you'd want to unwrap on the morning of Christmas. But such is the state in which we find ourselves. And usual and customary disclaimer here on the Palmetto Conservative Show before we get underway. Let you know I'm not here to simply give a speech to display vitriol, to display rancor or vituperation, or to engender bitterness. I'm not here to throw about incendiary language, nor am I here to try and incite violence. I am here, however, with the intent to try and inflame your senses, to do something that, quite frankly, there is far too little of in our public discourse, and that is to try a little bit of critical thinking. And there'll be a lot of that tonight. The simple problems and the supposed simple solutions to them are, quite frankly, off the mark. And we're going to delve into some of those things this evening as we take on the cacistocracy. For those of you new to the program, the cacistocracy, I can't even say it anymore. Cacistocracy is government by the worst persons, or a form of government in which the worst persons are in power. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that happens to be a pretty doggone good summation of the situation in Washington, D.C., and maybe not completely in Columbia, South Carolina, but there's certainly some symptoms of a growing cacistocracy here in Columbia. We're here to take that on tonight. Glad you're here with us. It's been an eventful week. Certainly can't ignore the fact of the tragic event that occurred in Newtown, Connecticut last week. And we'll be getting into that in due course as we go forward. But at the top of the program, I'd just like to say that our hearts go out to the families of those who were killed in that massacre. There is not a single thing that anyone can say that fills the void. And really all we can do is mourn with them and to try and sympathize. We'll never be able to empathize unless, I'd hate to be in that situation, you were in a situation where you had lost your young children in such a horrible, horrific set of circumstances. But our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers go out to not only the families who have lost loved ones, but to all those who are directly and tangentially impacted by that horrific event. I cannot imagine how, without my faith in God, and knowing that while God is still in control, He does offer us free choice. And sometimes that free choice results in some people making choices that have consequences that are bad for others. And that is exactly what happened. And, as a nation, I believe we have turned away from God as a nation. We are no longer as God-fearing and as spiritual a people as we once were. And we can talk a little bit about that as well going forward. But for those who are directly impacted by this tragedy, I just simply pray that the peace that surpasses all understanding might be there to comfort those in their time of mourning. And speaking of mourning, we want to recognize in passing as well, the passing of Judge Robert Bork. Judge Bork, as you probably are aware, unless you're particularly young and listening to this program, which speaks volumes for you, but Judge Bork was one of the few Supreme Court nominees not to be confirmed by the Senate, and in fact was turned down by the largest margin ever in terms of his confirmation vote. And he did a lot over a very storied career. What he is most famous for is the transformation of his last name into a verb. He was the original example of someone being ruthlessly vilified by the media without, in many people's minds, including mine, without any clear justification, and is an illustration of precisely how far we have fallen as a country in terms of our overall civil discourse. Whether you agreed with Robert Bork, whether you felt that he was too conservative, whether you believed that his views were too original intent for your taste, the attack and the vilification that was done to Robert Bork was, quite frankly, shameful and disgraceful, and may in fact have been a watershed moment in terms of what we are now seeing today in our country as the mainstream media, some of the extended media, go about and do their dead level best to try and vilify and tear down those whose views, their values, their principles don't fit the narrative that the mainstream media and the left, although I repeat myself, want to see. Judge Bork deserved much better in terms of his treatment, but to his credit, he went forward and became a conservative voice in the state of this country. Went on to pen several books that chronicled the decline of our civilization, our society, and pointed out ways, again, from a scholarly, legal mind, why things were going in the direction they were, what things were happening, and what, quite frankly, needs to change. We owe Judge Bork our thanks for that. Judge Robert Bork, dead at the age of 85 today. Judge Bork, rest in peace. Continuing along that same common theme, our loss of civil discourse was shown once again this week when in South Carolina, those of you who don't follow the United States Senate or Palmetto State politics closely, you may or may not be aware, depending on where you're listening from, that South Carolina's junior U.S. Senator, Senator Jim DeMint, has decided to resign his seat in the U.S. Senate after 2 years into his second term in office. Senator DeMint is going to go on and take over as the head of the Heritage Foundation. And that, in and of itself, is a topic for an entire segment on this show. But that is secondary to this story. As a result of Senator DeMint making the decision to resign, effective the end of this year, that will leave a vacancy here in South Carolina, and the rules, regulations, laws call for a replacement to be appointed to fill that seat until such time as a special election can be held to elect someone to fill out the remainder of the term of the junior senator from South Carolina. This week, the governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, announced that she was going to appoint, that she has appointed, South Carolina 1st Congressional District Representative Tim Scott to replace the seat, Jim DeMint, in the Senate. And Representative Scott will take the oath of office in the Senate on January 3rd. And we will, for the first time in South Carolina history, at least since Reconstruction, if not ever, have a black senator. Now, that in and of itself is, to me, unimportant. What is important to me is that the person appointed to replace Senator DeMint be one who is a true conservative and be one whose integrity and honesty is above reproach, and whose focus is on serving the people and not serving himself. And I believe that in soon-to-be former Representative Scott, the governor has made an excellent choice. Tim Scott has a compelling personal story. He has a compelling life's experience that, to no disrespect to the other candidates who were being considered, is particularly compelling for such a time as this. Tim Scott is a small businessman, a successful small businessman, is a self-professed and practicing Christian, and is a true conservative, a fiscal conservative and social conservative. And he has demonstrated the ability to articulate the conservative message in a positive way, in a winsome way, that I think will serve the people of South Carolina quite well. And I think will serve the people of the United States of America well also. But the role of a U.S. Senator is such that he should be a statesman and represent the interests of the state that sends him first, and secondarily to represent the nation as a whole. And I believe in the case of Tim Scott, he will do very, very well. But through no great surprise, there are those who immediately began to attack Tim Scott because, well, he's just a black man that seems to be off the plantation. Because not only is he a self-made, successful businessman, not only is he a well-respected and elected representative from the state of South Carolina, not only is he